What's going on, everybody? Your biggest fans here, Gavin,
Andrea,
and welcome to episode 3
of
the Kondo's Couch. Today, we're going to be talking about parenting. That is the topic of today's discussion. Andrea, why don't you give us the definition of parenting?
Okay, so today's definition for parenting is the activity of bringing up a child as a parent.
Wow, complex.
Very.
So as discussed in previous episodes, we have a kid. He's my son, and he just turned 4 years old this year, just at the time of the release of this podcast, about maybe 2 months ago. And he is a handful. He is, for a 4-year-old, in my opinion, very opinionated, which maybe would explain why he's so opinionated, because I'm opinionated.
I wonder who he got that from.
So we want to talk about just a few different aspects of parenting, our parenting styles, our individual parenting styles, and then just kind of all around parenting as me being divorced and her coming into being a step-parent. So as far as how I parent, or my parenting style, whatever you want to call it, that kind of came about after the divorce. Because just to be honest, to me, there's not much to discuss when it comes to how I was parenting before, so much as how I'm parenting really just over the past 2 years and now. So to be truthful, and she'll attest to this, I had a hard time parenting from a place that wasn't almost an immense amount of dad guilt. I was very much handing, if he was crying, what can I do to stop him from crying? What can I give him to stop him from crying? Rather than either one, figuring out what caused the crying, or two, moving on from the crying, like not distraction, but I guess that'd be the best way to put it, but diverting. And I was very much so, I think at the time it seemed to me to be empathetic. I was like, I really wanted to be, make sure that his emotional levels were at check. And so, giving him whatever he wanted as a 2-year-old, which, do they even know what they wanted to? No.
I didn't know what I wanted at 2.
Well, so we're almost 30 and I feel like we don't even know.
Still don't know what I want now.
But, so when it came to discipline, or their lack of, I just didn't. I would rather just soothe or suppress, I guess is the better word. I would suppress rather than discipline or soothe. If something was upsetting him, or he wasn't getting his way, or and I know that seems like, I'm talking about it now and I'm like, oh, that's so dumb. And, I don't know. Everybody's got their own opinions about parenting and whatever. We're just one of many voices, billions of voices of people who have an idea. We're not having this podcast to tell anybody how to parent. We're just talking about our journey as parents. And so I'm just telling y'all about, looking back at it now, how sucky I was as a dad going through a divorce.
Well, and also, I don't know if you want to share a little bit on being divorced. And we have a very different situation through a divorce than most divorced couples go through. A lot of the time, the dad only gets about every other weekend, right? That's more of the normal.
It's traditional.
Separation process is that only gets every other weekend. And when you're getting your child every other weekend, you're not really parenting. You're just kind of spending time with them, and you don't get to see them as often. So you do whatever they want. In our situation, it's a little bit different because they had a pretty even split. So we are spending as much time with him as his mom is. Like, we have him one whole week, and then she has him a whole week, and then we get him a whole week. So we have a split custody.
7 off.
7 days on, 7 days off. So we really have to parent.
Yes.
It's not a let's have fun with him every other weekend.
Yes.
It's we are parenting, doing homework, teaching him daily things.
Potty training.
I mean, everything that most parents would go through during a divorce that they wouldn't go through, we are actually having to parent. So it's a little bit different than most divorce cases.
Yep.
And that's why we also wanted to share it, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are divorced and that are going through similar situations that we're going through. And we wanted to kind of share our journey, his parenting, my parenting, and our co-parenting, not only with us, but also with mom, and what it really meant to parent him because of how the divorce kind of split the time between mom and dad.
Yeah. So once the way that the custody happened, where it was 7 on, 7 off, like I said, initially I was very much so just kind of giving into whatever it is he may want or whatever, just to.
And you were a single dad.
And I was single dad, just trying to figure stuff out. And, just to be real with y'all, I know that there's so many people that would champion reading blogs and looking at books and all these kinds of things. And that just was not me. I'm just not really into that. Which is why I'm trying to even say for this, like, this podcast isn't about telling you how to parent. We're just sharing our story, but a lot of times these books and podcasts and all of these different kind of things or blogs would tell you this is how you should parent. And because our situation is just so unique, there's no point in me telling you this is how you should do it. But all I say is, I wasn't looking for outside help. I was just kind of trusting my instinct. And to be truthful, my instinct was terrible because I had just, walked through a traumatic situation, and while still trying to work a full-time job and raise a child. And so initially, my parenting sucked. I was just giving over whatever that he wanted and trying to make sure that he, wasn't always upset and whining and crying. I think we maybe discount even how much he was going through in his mind with mom and dad not being together anymore. And, but once full responsibility, full weight came in of saying, okay, yes, his mom has him 7 days and I have him 7 days. That means, like she just said, I'm just as much of a parent as she is. A lot of times, some dads I've talked to that only have their kids every other weekend, like she said, it's just the fun parent or, just the one. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that, hey, if that's kind of just how the chips have landed for you, then enjoy your kids and don't feel like, maybe you need to be the one that's, so strict because you got to enforce and be this crazy, enforcing parent because, one parent does it one way. No, just enjoy your kids. But so for me, I really did have to step up to the plate and really start acknowledging, our children are a reflection of us, just point blank. Like, that's just unavoidable. I mean, they are just as much of us as we are of our parents. And maybe some of y'all don't have a good relationship with your parents, but it's undeniable that there are key attributes and attitudes and features that you owe a credit to your parents. And so I really stepped to the plate and really started to acknowledge that, I may have sucked initially as a single dad, but I didn't have to stay that way. And then as Andre and I began to develop a relationship, and, she had such a different perspective, an outside perspective of how I was doing, or even how she was raised versus how I was raised. She really was able to kind of, guide me, but even call me out on, kind of just bending to the whim of a 2-year-old. So you want to talk more about that, or,
Yeah. So as a stepmom, I've never had children. I was single. I have my own personal dog child, which whoever has a puppy and raises a puppy is very similar to having a child. It's not the same, but it is a lot of work. But look at him. Look how he turned out.
For our podcast
Beautiful
listeners, Please go to our YouTube
Beautiful.
and just check out this young man.
He's so cute and he's just sleeping away. But as a never been a mom, coming into, honestly, 2-3-year-olds are a very difficult age as is for kids that have not gone through divorce. That's just a difficult age. So, he was very forgiving of a lot of things, but he was 3 or 2, and he's dealing with separation anxiety from mom while he's with dad, and then also dealing with not having them together. I mean, there's a lot within that baby that he had to process being so young, that obviously also being the age that is the roughest age, all of that combined makes it very difficult as a parent, especially a divorced parent and a single parent. So when I came in, I kind of knew what I was getting myself into just by seeing how they interacted together, things like that. I am not from here. I am from Venezuela. I'm Hispanic, and parenting in the Hispanic culture is very different. There's a lot of things that I would never be able to get away with, that a lot of his kid got away with, that I probably wouldn't have been okay letting him get away with, right? Yeah. So me coming in with a perspective, first a different cultural perspective, right? But also a perspective that's not emotionally fully attached to the baby. Because as a dad that went through divorce and already putting his dad guilt on him, that he didn't have to carry that guilt, right? That was his own guilt as a dad putting on the baby and allowing him to not really grow or develop, but like get him stuck in how he was a lot of it based on your emotions towards him rather than the best for the baby and for him, right? So me coming in, I believe it helped a little bit when it comes to parenting, right? Because I wasn't necessarily emotionally attached to his baby as he is. So I was able to step back and see things from a different perspective, also with a different cultural background. And we've really had to work together before we even worked with Dallas. And I think the main key of what we're talking today is, different parenting styles, but really is that parenting comes from the parents, and it comes from a united front every time that you talk to the child. I don't know how many times when I was little, I would ask my mom something and she would say no. And then I knew I could run to my dad and he would say yes. Like I just knew. And after a certain point, my dad started saying, "What did your mom say?" Or he would just say, "Okay, go ask your mom." And when that happened, I changed because I knew that I couldn't now get away with a lot of things because they were a united front, because they had the same goal at hand and they wanted the same thing for that child. And the moment that they disagree, then there is conflict. Because not only is there conflict between us that he's seeing, right? But he's learning that he can get away with things with one parent and not with the other. So which at the end, the core root of that is a respect thing, which means that as much as we want to say yes to everything that the kids want because we want them happy, there are things that are not up to his decision because he's a 4-year-old. And as much as we want to buy and let him eat all the candy he wants at 7 p.m. at night, he's not old enough to handle the consequences of what that means. So when we put it in that perspective, and that was kind of what I brought to him, I was like, you can give him as much freedom to choose as the much strength he has to process the consequences of that choice. Meaning that if you know that he's not going to be able to handle a dentist visit when he has a cavity because it's too painful and we know better. we're not going to let him not brush his teeth and eat all the candy that he wants because he can't handle those consequences. Yeah. The same with, we had a little bit of a thing. We had a snowstorm here in Texas not so long ago. It was pretty horrible, but we had a snowstorm and we wanted to go outside and play with the snow with him. And he refused to wear his gloves. And we know that if he doesn't wear his gloves on a snowstorm, and he's going to want to play with the snow, his hands are going to freeze. It's not healthy. It's not good for him. He doesn't know that. So if we would have been, it's okay, don't wear your gloves and let him deal with things. He's not old enough to deal with the consequences that comes with freezing his hands off. So we had to really come together and say, we know what's best for him until he's old enough to know what's best for himself. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the job of a parent is not to control, is not to make him into what we want him to be, but really is to, one, show him love, care, protection, that they know that this is a healthy, positive, loving space, but also preparing them to be able to be citizens of this world, right? To be able to handle things in life that if they don't get taught that here, they're not going to be able to handle that outside of the house. He was very sweet until you said no. If you said no to him at any point in time, it was World War III. And I know that happens a lot. Now we've been pulling back on, it's not soothing him when we say no and he throws himself on the floor, because that's not a moment to soothe him. It's a moment to say, it's okay to cry. You can be upset about it. You can go to your room and be upset and cry about it as long as you need to. But we're not going to change your mind about saying no. Right?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that early on, I chose to parent from a place of like, I would associate it with like my love language, which my love language is words of affirmation, words, talking it out. I have a lot of feelings, and I'm not afraid to
show them,
express them, talk it out. And so, you know, I know that really talking things out with your children is a popular form of parenting. I've seen it. I know friends that are working with their kids and talking things out with them and all that. And that's great. And I have tried it, but I can't say from personal experience that trying to talk things out with a toddler is the best way to go.
And not in every situation.
No, and not in every situation, which I didn't understand that. Because I'm like, you know, there were some times where he would be sad or upset about something and we would be able to talk it out and it'd be great. And then there would be other times, parentheses, most of the time, where he'd be upset. I try to talk it out and it only made things worse because I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm using words or saying things that he maybe doesn't understand or comprehend, or he doesn't have the association between words and emotion.
Right.
But
they can't explain how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to have a conversation with them. Yeah. So we have now, one of the things that we do now, just for any parent out there, is that we're changing our language when we talk to him. Yep. So there are things that we give him a choice on so that he can develop using his own choices and using his own mind into making decisions for himself, and then changing our parenting and our speech or what we're saying into when it's not a choice. We don't, a lot of the time, and what I would see a lot is, for example, it's time to go to sleep. And instead of saying, okay, it's time to go to sleep, it was like, hey, are you ready to go to sleep? He's never going to be ready to go to sleep. So the answer was, no, I'm not ready. And then he would be, well, we're doing it either way. So it confuses him because for him, well, you just asked me, I'm telling you I'm not ready, and now you're mad at me. Why? So in their mind, it doesn't make sense. So we had to change our speech. And that was one of the first things that we worked together on, was there are things that we give him a choice on. For example, if he's done eating and we have fruit, we can get him choose what fruit he wants to eat. We're not letting him choose if he's going to eat fruit or what he's going to eat before the fruit. But we'll tell him, okay, we have blueberries, strawberries, and peaches. Which one do you want? And he can choose in that moment. Taking a bath is not a question.
Are you ready for bath time?
No.
No.
We're not going to ask him, right? Because he's never going to be ready.
No.
He's never ready for the things that we need him to do, right? Are you ready to go potty? He's never ready. If we ask him, he'll say no every time.
Every time.
So now we know when he needs to go potty. We see him dancing because we know he needs to go potty. So at that point, it's like, okay, we're going to go potty. It's not a question. We're not giving him a choice that then we're taking away, right? Because he's never going to give us the answer that we're looking for.
No.
Because he's 4. And because if he's watching a movie, the last thing he wants to do is eat dinner or watch TV or go take a bath or go to bed,
Whatever.
right?
Yeah.
So learning us, because we can't teach him that. We have to learn how to word things differently, how to teach him that it's okay to cry in certain situations. Yep. It's okay to be upset about things.
Yep.
It's not okay to stay there. For example, if he's done playing with a toy and we need to we have a rule in the house, for example, if he's playing with some toys and he wants to play with a whole other set of toys, then we need to put some toys away, right? And he knows this. He knows it. He does it usually, happily. There are times in which he doesn't want to put away his toys because he doesn't want to, right? Him crying over that, it's okay. You can cry about it for like 3 seconds, but we still have to put away the toys,
That's
right?
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things that he wasn't doing. If he were to say, hey, we're going to put up the toys, as soon as he started crying, he's like, okay, well, let's leave him here. That one takes away his respect, right? Because then Dallas learned that anytime that he would cry about something, then he would get his way. And we had to do a lot of work on that. Is crying it's not going to change our mind. We can allow it. We can let you process your feelings. We can talk about it with you. But the answer is not going to change. We're not deviating from what we already taught you and what we already said. And we have to follow through. The same with like, if you don't eat your dinner, then we're going to turn off the TV, or we're not going to have dessert, or we're not going to get to have a 30-minute bath. We're going to have to do a shower. If he still doesn't eat his dinner, we have to follow through with what we said. Because once you don't follow through, you lose all of the work that you've put into it, because they learn within seconds.
Absolutely.
And then they know, oh, he says he's going to do that, but he's really not going to do it. You know? So I think that was us coming together. He had to teach me a lot more of the empathy part of it. I am not... Like, I'm very much the opposite of him. I am not a very super empathetic person. I see things as they are, and I don't get too emotional about things, which is great in certain moments. It's not great in other moments. And I've had to learn when to say, okay, this is a moment in which I need to be a little bit more caring and loving and do other things and take it a different way, right? So we've been able to kind of balance each other out and put certain guidelines that we have in our household that regardless of who's here, we're going to follow that through.
I find that, you know, it's funny that you just said that. I find that children tend to be more extreme versions of what we are. So she just said she's not empathetic, and it made me think. I was like, my son Dallas, he can be quite emotional, but to a very extreme degree when things are. And it's not just when it's not going his way, but when something happens, you know, he bumps his head, or our dog is licking him too much. It's like he likes it, and then all of a sudden it's like he hates it, and it, you know, and so. Having the extreme version of myself, I tended to just try to use that same amount of emotional energy to fix it, which only dug myself into a deeper hole. So, you know, her perspective and her style, I would say, complemented mine in a way that it was the opposite. And it helped steer us into a very healthy place where he could be his best self. Parenting is about finding out the true and the best version of your child as possible.
Right.
Because if he's just crying and whining all the time. I mean, how do you enjoy that? I love when my son comes home from school. I love when we go to the park or when we can we went to the grocery store yesterday and he was pleasant and we passed by the candy bar aisle and you know who cried for candy bars? Me, not him.
I was about to say, I was like, definitely Dad.
It was me, not him. And he was totally fine. And, so it took a long time for me, truly, to not just get past the divorce and my parenting, but to understand that the best version of my child, of Dallas, was one that received discipline that maybe I couldn't give to him because I didn't know how or couldn't get past the mental barrier of my own self.
But it was amazing because now, honestly, there's been a huge change. Like I've only been living here for now it's been 4 months. Yeah. I lived out of the state. I just moved back after we got married. So I'm pretty new at this. Like we are pretty new at doing this. I mean, we're talking to you like we have this thing figured out. No, we don't. I don't. We are just learning what we each of us learned from before, putting it together here and hope he turns out decent, right? Like that's all we can really do. And we feel like And honestly, I used to read blogs before and now would get terrified reading blogs.
She almost called off our wedding because some blogs were telling her how terrible
being a stepmother was. I was terrified. And when I first moved here, not gonna lie, this was World War III house. No one listened to anyone. They was just screaming. He was terrified of going anywhere with him because if you said no to something, you just had to come home because there was no stopping the screaming, no stopping the crying. He could never go to Target. Like basic things that you want to be able to go do with your child. Like I would love to take Dallas every time I go grocery shopping with me without being terrified that he's going to have a panic attack at the grocery store if he doesn't get every type of cereal that there is there because they want every cereal, right? Yeah. So it's been a very strong, difficult past 4 months. But if you see him now, it's a whole happy, joyful, different child. He knows his boundaries. Yep. Kids are learning what boundaries. They're not born with boundaries. They don't know what they are. They're going to test them and test them until we put them there. If not, they can do whatever they want. Like if you really let them, they'll do whatever, which is great because they get to use their imagination and be great. But there are boundaries in certain things that they need to learn. And we are entrusted with putting those boundaries for them so that they can grow up to be incredible people, right? And he's just happy and he knows what he can and cannot do. And knowing that lets him excel in everything else that he does because then he's eating and he's trying new foods and he's loving he loves chickpeas and cucumbers, like random stuff that most children wouldn't eat. We've learned that he loves and tofu. He eats tofu and he eats like broccoli, like those are his favorite things. And now that if we hadn't been daring to make him try this stuff, he still will be eating the same things that he eats. Chicken nuggets, French fries, pizza. But we had to start forcing him to start trying, not force him to eat the whole thing if he hates it, but start trying different things. And now he's been able to eat things that he's never eaten before. And he now goes potty and now he's happy.
To bed on time by himself.
Goes to bed. He's excited about choosing a book before going to bed. He takes a nap in the middle of the day on a Saturday. So we really have allowed ourselves to kind of learn this together and create the best guidelines for him for his best life. And he really, we really don't have to fight with him much. He's pretty great. And he loves to play and we play with him and we dance with him. And if he's having a great day, we'll treat him with a cookie. We're not big on sugar in this household. We would rather he loves fruit. So if he wants fruit, we'll give him all the fruit in the world that he wants. But candy and stuff, we really don't. We give him one candy maybe once a week. It's very sparse. Because we don't want him to expect that all the time. Every time he does something well, there doesn't have to be a reward.
Yeah.
But he's just great. He loves to play around. We danced with him the other day. He cooks with me and then he eats what we cooked. He's excited about little things. We throw a party every time he goes potty. So now we can go. We went to the museum the other day and we're able to take him with us, and we can go grocery shopping. I spent a whole day at the grocery store with him the other day, and it's easy. And it makes it easy because now he gets to experience most of the world, because now we can take him.
Yep.
Because he can now develop those moments where we can say, okay, hold my hand. Yep. And now he can be, when I first got here, he would not hold his hand crossing the street. And Gavin is like, oh, he doesn't like me holding his hand. And I was like, okay, if there's a car and runs him over, are you going to tell his mom, oh, well, he didn't want me to hold his hand? No, you can't. We can't do that.
I would try to tell that.
No.
That's not acceptable.
No. So now he knows that every time there's a street, he reaches for your hand. We have to hold hands when we're crossing the street. Once we're off the street, he has freedom to run wherever he wants to.
Yeah.
And he's happy. He's not emotionally compressed with all his feelings.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we still mess up. I mean, there are times where we're just like, we don't know what else to do today. Like, let's just go to bed. Like,
put a movie on.
We're done. Yeah. Like, just let him watch a movie. But
yeah. So really, for me, there is no perfect parenting style.
Right.
There is no book. There is no, I think I wanted to just kind of talk about this and our experiences over the past few, months, and my experience over the past few years. I just want to talk about it because, just to really come back to say, there's no such thing as perfect parents.
Absolutely.
But you can try to raise your children in a way where they feel loved, safe, and they will be decent members of society, whatever society looks like when they're older.
10 years from now.
Yeah, like I said, they are a reflection of you to the fullest extent. And, I'm not saying that, I'm afraid of the way he's going to grow up if he's just screaming and crying all the time. But I think he'd rather enjoy life if we could sit down as a family at a restaurant when they open all back up eventually, and not have to get spanked or
right.
We have to leave, and so I just encourage any parent out there, if you're reading blogs, if you're constantly I feel like it's almost like a news cycle, because there's all kinds of parenting techniques and the blogs and the Instagram moms that take the best pictures and the Starbucks
it's all
photos.
A lie.
It's all a lie.
Let's all be honest here.
I don't normally post about my son on Instagram because it's just not, perfect. It's not this, I don't know how these people get their children to pose, but my God, my son won't stand still for 5 seconds.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no. Getting a picture is a whole thing.
But yeah, so any parent out there, you're doing great if your child feels loved. You're doing great if your son or daughter or children or dog feel safe, loved, taken care of. And it's a journey. How I started parenting him when he was 0 to now is extremely different. I'm sure Gavin 4 years ago would look at how I'm parenting now and be in horror because of how I thought I would be or should be doing things by now. And I think that's a perfect place to talk about the quote we've got for today. Andre, you want to talk about the quote?
Yeah. So to be able, I know we talked a little bit more than normal today, but we really wanted to make these podcasts feel like they had substance, right? We're not just kind of brushing through a topic. We really want to get to the core of what we're talking about and really let people into our lives. Yeah. And hopefully you feel a little bit better about yourself when you hear us, or when maybe you think you're not doing such a bad job as a parent by just listening to us. So to end today's episode, the quote that we chose today is by Linda Wooten, and actually says being a mother. We switched it to being a parent because I am a whole believer that mothers are warriors out there, and they're incredible and they're amazing, but so are dads. And if we allow dads to be as much as part of their kids' lives, we would really see them embracing that role. And I mean, how many kids wish they had a dad around, right?
Yeah,
so we really wanted to kind of tweak the quote a little bit to, instead of just being a mother, especially because I'm a stepmom, we call it in this house a bonus mom.
Bonus mom.
Because I'm as much part of this baby's life as his mom. So we call it a bonus because it's an extra mom. Like he'll probably have an extra dad eventually, right?
Yep.
So our quote is, being a parent is learning about strengths you didn't know you had and dealing with fears you didn't know existed.
And I think that's such a great place to end this. I know that for me, the fears I had were, I thought for a long time, fears for him, but it was more so fears for myself of being inadequate or of hurting him or whatever. That's what it was internally. But yes, absolutely. As a parent, you have strength. You have the ability to be strong for your children and love them through tough situations. And
it's different, like what you just said.
Yeah.
Until you have children, or until you raise children, you don't really know what real fear and real strength is.
Yes.
The strength he had to be a single dad will never compare to any strength that he's had in the past. The strength that it takes to raise, not only to raise them, but to build the life that you want for them. It's beyond what any other situation would give you. The same with fears. Yeah. The fears that you have for your child, or in general, like if I'm falling down the stairs, it's not nearly as much as a fear as if he sees his child falling down the stairs, right? True. Like there is a sense of responsibility and love that's so much deeper than anything that you're going to feel with anybody else.
So to cap this thing off, be patient with yourself, love your children fiercely. If you have a parent that's working with you, communicate often and openly and in love, and just be honest with yourself with where you're at. And
as parents, stay here.
Yeah.
Children learn by watching.
Yep.
And a lot of relationships can be really rocky because of a child.
That's right.
So this has to stay incredibly strong. Right. Our relationship has to be stronger than what we feel for him, so that he can get the best of us.
That's right.
So that's a big one for us, I think. Yeah. Anyways.
So we hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at The Kondos. Also, if you haven't subscribed to us here on YouTube or found us on Spotify or any other streaming platform, you can find us at The Kondos Couch. And any last words you'd like to share?
Well, no. And if you guys want to keep up with all the quotes or know when there is new videos or anything like that, our Instagram has every quote that we have. It's posted. We give a little sneak peek of every single thing that we talk about. So if you just you forgot that quote, or you just want to go back and listen to our previous podcast and keep those quotes, they're all posted by who wrote it on our Instagram. So
remember, we're your biggest fans, and we'll see you guys next time.